الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واستفزز من استطعت منهم بصوتك وأجلب عليهم بخيلك ورجلك وشاركهم في الأموال والأولاد وعدهم وما يعدهم الشيطان إلا غرورا إن عبادي ليس لك عليهم سلطان وكفى بربك وكيلا. صدق الله العظيم. In this verse, Allah Tabarak Ta'ala mentions of an incident that happened right at the beginning of creation and how apt it was for the end of times. This entire world system, what we called dunya, or we call the imtihan, or we call a test, it began when Adam alayhi salam was made. And at that time, what we call today Iblis, the devil, Lucifer, Shaitan. At that time, he was known as Azazil. He had a hope that the jinn were living in this world. There was no man at that time. And in charge of the jinn, he wanted to be the boss. There was no man. And then he was informed that man is being created. So he made his visit to Adam alayhi salam's mold. There was no heart in that mold. He looked inside Adam alayhi salam, he went through him. And then he came out and he said that besides evil, corruption, bloodshed, this mold will never be able to do anything. He understood us. He understood how we get emotionally affected. How someone says something to you, you don't get angry. So he knows how to touch. Then he must just sway your wife, sway your father, sway your grandfather. Man's nature is such, there are certain buttons you press, and that reaction that you want will come out immediately. If you ever meet a con artist, the way he knows how to talk, he'll steal your money, and you'll still feel you should have given more also. The way he's able to put it front, he knows which button to press when. Man's nature is such. So he saw us. And then Allah Tabarak Ta'ala, when Adam alayhi salam was made, this Lucifer, Iblis, the devil was told, you also join the angels. Everyone must make sajda, prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. And he refused. And we all know what happened after that. He was kicked out. And Adam alayhi salam was also after a while told, you will also go. And the progeny of Adam alayhi salam was told, remember that once upon a time, the devil attacked your father and your mother in Jannah. He could not see them happy there. He wanted to pull them out. He will do the same thing here. Adam alayhi salam and the wife of Adam alayhi salam, our mother Hawa radiallahu anha, when they were in paradise, they were wearing the clothes of paradise. Iblis was a master of being able to say something in such a manner. He understood Adam alayhi salam does not understand what is called, can anyone ever be jealous? Because in Jannah there was no such thing called jealousy. And can anyone take the name of Allah and still lie? وَقَاسَمَهُمَا, how he took qasam to them. For Adam alayhi salam, if you say qasam by the oath of Allah, there's no way you could be lying. But the devil knew that how to work on someone's emotion, and he will say that I must have misunderstood, this is the truth. Adam alayhi salam knew he was forbidden from a certain bush, that you cannot eat from a certain area of paradise. But when that devil took that qasam upon qasam upon qasam, Adam alayhi salam did not trust his own understanding. And he felt how I understood the command was not correct, and he and his wife went and ate. That was the error of Adam alayhi salam, which Almighty Allah says, وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. One meaning is, that purposely he did not break the promise of Almighty Allah. He was the Nabi of Allah. He was the beloved of Allah. He cried so much after that. Purposely he did not break it. But he made an error because the devil's call is a unique call. And Adam alayhi salam's mistake was meant to be a wake-up for the rest of the world. So when Adam alayhi salam's coming down to the world, Allah Tabarak Ta'ala sent a message to the children of Adam. لا يفتننكم الشيطان كما أخرج أبويكم من الجنة. How the devil took out your parents from paradise. You don't make the same mistake again. Let him not pull you in his trap like how he pulled your family, your parents out of paradise. يَنْزِعُ عَنْهُمَا لِبَاسَهُمَا. They were wearing the clothes of paradise. When they ate what they were not supposed to eat, the first result was their clothing fell off. Adam alayhi salam, Hawa radiyallahu anha grabbed the leaves of Jannah. Huge the leaves were, huge in size. Man's nature is haya. You don't want to be naked. They started covering their bodies. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala says, He was the one who took out their clothes of paradise. There was an indication that one day, with His very voice, He will say such a word to you, that you will also take out your clothing. You will also take it out. يَنْزِعُ عَنْهُمَا لِبَاسَهُمَا لِيُرِيَهُمَا سَوْآتِهِمَا. So that people will be able to see the private parts. How they covered themselves. But the indication was when the time will come and He'll take out your clothing. Instead of covering yourself, you'll do the opposite. That if someone has to tell you, oh my mother, please cover yourself. The mother will get upset and says, my body, don't tell me what to do with it. Took out the clothing in such a manner. When Adam alayhi salam was sent down, the match started. The devil said, I will show you that in the progeny of Adam, there will not be one who will be sincere. Not one. And Allah Tabarak Ta'ala then said to him, we will give you the power to prove what you want to prove. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ. Before we explain it in detail, we will just make one quick translation to understand what powers the devil was given. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala said, voice. We will give you voice. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ وَأَجْلِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ وَرَجِلِكَ. We will give you armies. The armies of the world, the most superior will be yours. In every era. The shaitani world had the empires of evil. وَشَارِكْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. We will make you a partner in the wealth. So in every era, the shaitani world enjoyed wealth. Even if the believers had wealth, the shaitan would be a partner in their wealth. Even if the believers had wealth. How amazing when you will see a ram cow. When Arabia found oil, then we will say, where America came into it. They say, America, Arabia oil. Arabia, America oil. But we have to be there. If Afghanistan will come up in the future, you will not see Afghanistan only. You will see Afghanistan with someone. Never ever did the shaitani world allow any group to come up except that the share had to be there. Because Almighty Allah had given it. Sharikhum fil amwal. In wealth you will be the partner always. Wal awlad. And in children you will also be a partner. We will explain how you become a partner in children. Wa'idhum. And you carry on promising how much you want to promise. وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. And the end of the verse. See this promise. وَعِدْهُمْ. And the first part of the verse, voice, is the same thing. So in between, armies were mentioned. Armies is very strong. Wealth was mentioned. Wealth is a thing. The world dies for wealth. Getting the children of the world, it's something everyone wants. But more powerful than armies, and more powerful than wealth, more powerful than getting time with everyone's children, was called the power of voice. The power to be able to promise. It was that promise when the devil said to Adam alayhi salam in Jannah, I promise you by Allah, if you eat from here, the anger of Allah will never, ever, ever fall on you. Min al-Khalideen, you will then get life forever and ever. Adam alayhi salam, when he heard, I can do such a thing that after today, Allah will never become angry with me. And I'll never be taken out of here. What a promise it was. The ability to promise. وَعِدْهُمْ. Then Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ. The promise of the devil is nothing but a lie. إِلَّا غُرُورًا. Now we will go slowly. You got armies in the world, the devil was told. It was armies in the world when the world started and when the world will end. That they had a mission to ensure that on the world, those who want to say Allah do not survive. How Allah's system is that there are numbers also for everything. Numbers. And Allah got a certain, like a pattern. Before Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam came in the world saw 4 mighty empires. Around these mighty empires, all the baby empires ran. 4 mighty empires all went out of their way to make sure the name of Allah is never taken. In today's time in history, they will call them the mighty Babylonian Empire. Today we won't even know about it. But one day in school, maybe you would have heard about the gardens of Babylon. That was an empire once upon a time. The mighty Babylonian Empire. It was the man of this empire who broke the masjid of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Before him, what Sulaiman alayhi salam built with the jinn. Such a huge masjid, what we see Aqsa today is not Sulaiman alayhi salam's. When he built it, just the minaret itself went so high in the sky that the shade that minaret would give would reach the next town. The shade that minaret would give would reach the next town. Because it was high in the sky, what we today call skyscrapers. But in that time there was no word called, how can you have a skyscraper? But he had the jinn. The Babylonian Empire brought Masjid al-Aqsa down. They destroyed the entire kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salam. They were no small baby. They destroyed the entire kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salam. In the lands of Al-Aqsa, there was no Torah left. There was no scholar left. Either it was you killed or you were taken to Iraq. There was no one left. Babylon. Then there was the mighty Persian Empire. Many a time in school you might have heard, there was a man called Alexander the Great. He came after this, it was called the mighty Greek Empire. Between the Greek Empire and this Babylonian Empire, there was the mighty Persian Empire. It remained mighty until the era of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It had a 1,000-year era. In recent history, no empire lasted so long. England was the longest, 300 years. This was 1,000 years. And forget the empire lasting 1,000. It was such a shaitani empire that the fire that they put up, they had employed people day and night to make sure the fire burns. For 1,000 years, this fire continued burning. They had so much of time for this fire. They say for 1,000 years, they did not allow it to die. Only on one night, no matter how much they tried, that fire just went. They let it the next day again, but that night, history recorded, the night Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. How much they tried to keep it going, that fire just went to say, my time is almost up. A mighty empire of 1,000 years, Persia. So there was Babylon. There was the mighty Persian Empire. Then there was the mighty Greek Empire. We hear today Greek medicine. It came from that era. Greek. Alexander the Great. All from the mighty Greek Empire. And then there was the mighty Roman Empire. The year of Hercules, Herakl, he was the ending, the beginning, Constantine. When we speak of Istanbul, the man who made it at that time was known as Constantine. It became Constantinople. He put up something is what we call today Istanbul. When he put it up and it was completed, he died before the completion. The man who came after him on its completion, he said, it's like a challenge it was. You can see what shaitans they were. He said, "Oh Solomon," meaning Sulaiman alayhi salam, that you really thought you did something. What's this? And look what we did. Everything was a challenge. Everything. Shaitans. 4 empires went out of their way to ensure that the name Allah is never taken in the world. 4 empires tried to blow out the flame of Islam. And how much they blew, but their fire blew out. The mighty fire, which today in the Olympics they show that the fire will stay high. And the Statue of Liberty shows the fire will stay high. That fire died. But the flame of Islam, which is such a simple flame, even before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, somewhere in the world there was always, no matter what these empires did, and no matter how much they threatened others. If today you visit into the lands of Turkey, a lot of excavation is taking place. One of those things is those arenas. If you go and see the buildings which were in the past, it looks like a soccer stadium. So you hear today's soccer stadium took the idea from that era. But in that era, they never played soccer in that arena. In that era, they had, it was called the Fight of Gladiators. Or more, whoever wanted to be obedient to Allah was taken as captive, was kept in the dungeons for many days or months. And then when everyone would gather for that match, then they would let loose lions and tigers and bears. And this group had to go and fight those animals. And you can understand that in the ending the group would die. They would pass away. And watching them being ripped apart, people will be clapping. They would only do that barbaric act to give a message to the world. If anyone dares to be obedient to Allah, you will meet your fate here in our arena. The arena is there still. The arena collapsed. They had to bring up that arena today. The people who sat and clapped, they all collapsed. But that flame of Allah never ever collapsed. Thousands died in that arena, and everyone's blood gave birth to another, that there is only one Allah. Thousands died in the arena. But belief in Almighty Allah never died. The devil was told, "I'll give you the armies." He enjoyed 4 in the past. And amazing, in Islam, he also enjoyed 4. Roman Empire, Persian Empire wrapped up when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I saw the palace of the Romans. I saw the palace of the Persians." The Persians' palace was called the White House. Al-Qasr al-Abyad. He said, "I saw it. Allah gave it to you all." By the time of Umar radiallahu anh, there was no Persian Empire left. Roman Empire finished in Sham. They ran away to Constantinople. From Constantinople, they were in a fort. They managed to stand. And for about another 800 years, what we call 1453. In 1453, Constantinople was the last. And Constantinople crashed. With the fall of Constantinople, they themselves have written, the end of the mighty Roman Empire. I think it also lasted 1,000 years. Also lasted 1,000 years. Ended on 1453 with the fall of Constantinople. Muhammad al-Fatih, when he took over Constantinople, he said, "It's according to your own constitution that whoever rules from Constantinople is called the Caesar of the world." So he said, "I'm the Caesar." That word they call Qaisar-e-Rum. He said, "I am Qaisar." Meaning Italy and what we call today Rome, they were supposed to recognize him wherever they would recognize. So the easiest way is to say, no, the empire has now ended. No match. 4 mighty empires. And Islam, the Persian came to an end with Islam. The Roman came to an end with Islam. The Roman Empire in the previous books were known as such an empire that will come, that will break iron also. So strong. Iron can't break. This empire will break iron. Then the question came, and who will break this empire? It was unique. It was called Islam. And broke it. And how they broke it. But because we never saw those wars, we won't go into it. We normally can relate with something we saw. After the Roman Empire collapsed, 1453, Almighty Allah's system is, again the shaitan was told, no problem. You fail once, give you one more chance. Another 4 empires I'll give you. 4 more empires. 4 armies of the world. What they have to do, ensure that there is no one obedient to Allah. So 4 empires came up, and how they came up? Those are the 4 we can live with. Babylon, Persia, Greek, Rome. We will say, I don't even know them. But if you see the books of history, they were well known. They were barbarians from the beginning till the end. They had no faith. They had no humanity. They could see a lion tearing a person in front of him and they could smile and clap hands. They were animals of the time. But we never saw them. So 4 wrapped up. But still Allah's name was taken. Say 4 more empires. 4 empires rose. Each one of them, their mission in life was to make sure that any law can come in the world except the law of Allah. Any law. It could be called a secular law. They called it a democratic system. And some call it a social system. And some said we will rule that everyone's money belongs to the government. And everyone is on par. And the other group said we will rule in this manner. Whatever different name they took, all of them meant one thing. Any law but the law of Islam. Allah's law, no way. Any other law. Any other law, not the law of Allah. 4 empires. One was known as the mighty British Empire. The United Kingdom. They had a time of about 300 years. How barbaric they were, because they also wrote the books of history. We can't pick it up. But if you ever visit those countries which were once upon a time Muslim, and you ask when the British reached here, what happened? Then you will understand the meaning of barbarians. In our own South Africa, if you go and see in Cape Town, Robben Island. In Robben Island, we only know that Nelson Mandela was put here. But look at Robben Island and you will see that there's somebody else's Qabristan there also. And then read about how did Muslims come to Cape Town. And then you will see that in Indonesia there was a battle. You wonder what the British had to do in Indonesia. And a prince of the time, jihad after jihad after jihad, in the ending, the only way they could stop him fighting was to bring him all the way here, to the Cape. And how they would keep them, how they would abuse them, how they would torture them. In today's time when we speak of Guantanamo Bay, and the prisons which the Afghans today are taking reporters to say, come, I'll show you what is your America. Let me show you what is a prison cell. Let me show you how they made me sit on a chair. And how they would put electric currents through my entire body. And it was not a once-off thing. How they would put us to drown, on the verge of drowning, then they pull you out. But it wasn't a once-off. How they would put us in rooms and we would stay in the rooms for days upon days upon days. Whenever we want to sleep, they start banging, banging, banging. It's called sleep deprivation. How they would do such torture to make sure you come out alive, you don't die. They would not let the person die. On the verge of dying, send him to hospital. Pump him with tablets, medicine. His body again gets strength, send him back. When Allah Quran mentioned, the other day one student asked me, what's the meaning of this verse? La yamutu fiha wa la yahya. That in Jahannam, they will not die, but they'll not be alive also. He said, how can you not be alive, not die? I said, ask those people who were in the prisons of Afghanistan. They were dying to die. But the shayateen would take them to the brink of death and pull them back. That you will live, but you're not alive. No death, no life. So what a punishment Allah gave, that I will show you the meaning of. You will not die, you will not live. A day will come where everyone who did it will see how it is done. Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَا يُوثَقُ وَثَاقَهُ أَحَدٍ. That on that day it will be understood, no one punishes like Allah. You can try what you want. England, it was a barbarian from the beginning. They went through country after country. We normally know the history of India. When the Muslims were fed up with the British and they rose to say, get out of our country. They said after that battle, they said if you had walked from the streets from one city to the end of another city, not a single, what we today call your light poles, they had like trees, every 2 meters or 3 meters a tree. So not a tree except that one alim was hanging from the tree. To give a message to the entire country, dare you all stand up against us. Every tree they had one alim hanging. One alim wrote that we were young and we heard about what they did to our parents. They took them with sacks. They had to carry those sacks to the river, heavy sacks. That sack was then tied to their bodies and then they were pushed into the water. So you can't swim. And as they are in the water, then the soldiers laughing start shooting bullets. Whoever they shoot gets shot also. Whoever they don't shoot, he drowns because of the weight of that. For them it was a joke that who will ever stand up against us? England. And then Russia. If England was a barbarian, those who saw Russia, the Soviet Union, they went into houses in the worst of the winters where you will think soldiers will never come to your houses. At that time they would knock at the door, they would enter. Muslim houses in the Soviet Union had to have liquor in their rooms. You had to have liquor. Then they would enter. They would come especially in the month of Ramadan and they would make the Muslim eat haram meat. They eat it. Then they would tell the child, you read on the mat, you read on the prayer mat. And the child will say, no. If they just found one person, if they found one Quran, if they found one child who knew Kalima, the whole family was slaughtered. But even in the winters they would come. In such conditions, Allah inspired believers. Today when you will go into those countries, you will wonder how Islam survived. In the winter months, even in the winter they were scared the enemy will reach. They had underground places built. What made them do that? They could have easily said times are hard. Just go with the flow. But there is a certain current that comes from Allah, that He doesn't allow everyone to go with the flow. Something made these people. A woman worries of her child. She knew my child and my husband and me will all get slaughtered by these barbarians. But still she helped her husband to dig. They dug in the bottom of their houses. Dug, they made another world. In the winter they would go into that world, underground. And there they would teach that child how to read Quran. They would have liquor in their houses. Something for me and you to think about. Today no army comes and tells me don't take drugs. No army tells me to take drugs. Today I need an army to tell me don't take the drugs. They were being forced, drink this. And they had to drink it in Ramadan to show I'm not fasting. And as soon as the soldiers would go, the mother would know, oh my son, I won't see you now for another 4 months. Because he was going to go now under and he would stay there in his Jama'ah. In that world he would stay so that he could learn his deen. And you understand that era. The mighty Russian Empire, that empire came to an end, but the flame of Islam continued burning. Empire came to an end. Then there was what was called Germany. It had about 100-year period. It was the most feared empire. It was called like a leopard. It would just go on to people, just fast. It had the best weapons of the era. And then there was the mighty empire of the United States of America. 4. And that side there was 4. Babylon. Babylon was the beginning. Here England was the beginning. And Babylon started it. And the king of Babylon, in his dream, he saw the ending. He saw the mightiest that will come is the Romans. Mightiest in his dream. And in his dream he saw one rock is coming. One rock. And the rock banged onto the head of it. Of this big statue that he saw. And everything collapsed. And when he asked, what does this dream mean? The crux of the dream is, no matter what empires the world will put up, when what is called the flame of Iman will strike, it will bring everything to the ground. One explanation was given to him, when Noor-e Muhammad, when the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will fall, empires will collapse. And it came down. And in our time, it started with Britain. And if anyone knows history, Britain and America is the same thing. The American was a branch of the United Kingdom. They split after. It started with British and it ended with the worst. The Roman Empire was known as an empire that crushes steel. The United States of America was known as an empire in front of which Russia and Britain and Germany all said, yes boss, we give up. Worst of the worst. But how that 4 empires came, Allah said, I'll give you the armies of the world. To do one thing, to make sure that everyone goes with the flow. Armies, wealth, all that 4 empires had wealth, this 4 empires got wealth. That we don't have to mention. You'll ask, who is the richest? Even if somebody else's currency is higher, the whole world knows nothing but. When Britain was the empire, it was called the sterling pound. Nothing could happen but the pound. And when America took front seat, it became the dollar. The whole world will move on the dollar. And you will wonder why sometimes a Muslim country can't say to them, get lost. It's our oil. It's our resources. It's our mines. It's our countries. So the answer will be, Allah wanted that power will be by them. So they got their share in that. The wealth is theirs. But even that was not called the worst. The armies was not the worst. And the wealth was not the worst. And having the children was not the worst. وَشَارِكْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ, I'll make you a partner in the wealth. And I'll make you a partner in their children. How do you become a partner in someone's children? All those empires and all these empires, one thing they enjoyed was, they were able to put up a system that the children of the world would spend more time under their education system than under any other. Meaning we will have the chance to train. And we will teach. We call it today one education system for the world. When we were small, I used to wonder, why do we do European history? Because in South Africa, what it got to do with Napoleon? Because he was never here. Couldn't they just teach us basic South African history? But Italy we had to learn about. And we had to learn about the world wars. We had to learn about Shakespeare. We had to learn about people who we never knew ever came to our country. Because they were very important. One education system for the world. So your child is actually their child. And more time he'll spend under their system than with us. They will take him from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7. You say 4, 5, supposed to be 7, 6, 5, 4. Because in the beginning they said, give us your child at 7. Then they said 6, then they said 5, then they said 4. Now today when you drive around, you'll say, give us your child as soon as he's born. And parents give it. That mother says, I have to work. So I got 6 months maternity leave. After 6 months, where do I put my child? It's called crush. That crush means bring him here and he'll be crushed. The child is made theirs. But even that was not called the worst. The worst power which the devil was given was called voice. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ. Excite, or you call it, work on emotions. Using your voice, work on emotions. Using his voice, the devil, he took something called music and asked the one who's addicted to music how it makes him feel. How it makes the angry one soft. How it makes the soft one angry. How he says, I can't do without my music. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ. Stir the emotions of the ones who you want, or the ones on who you have power using your voice. Music. The Bible also speaks about something else, and they translate it, use music. But that's the beauty of Islam and Quran. That every other book which was known once upon a time as a book of Allah went through translation. And when you go through translation, you'll never end up with the truth. When you go through translation, you'll never end up with the truth. In the original scripture of the Bible, the word Ahmad could be worked out so clearly. Isa alayhi salam said, Mubashiran bi rasuli ya'ti min ba'di ismuhu Ahmad. If you say we want the Bible original language, you'll be able to pick up a word which means the one that's the most praised, Muhammad. The one who praises the most, Ahmad. But when translation took place, they changed that. And now the translation ended, the comforter. So where they came up and where it started, it's very hard to explain it to you, but it's called when translation takes place, you change the whole form. Up till today in the Bible, there's one word where Jerusalem is speaking about in the Bible, I'm waiting for my Savior. Jerusalem is speaking. Jerusalem speaking and says, the one whose voice will be most sweet. If me and you have to translate that, we will say, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He will come who does not speak from his own side. What comes from his tongue is revelation. So they got his voice will be so sweet. We will say, we can translate that. Then the next phrase of the Bible is, He is Muhammadan. So they'll put a translation, He is how wonderful. They will say there's no need to translate. He is Muhammad. But what translation can do? Up till today, if they want to, they will see the word Muhammad in their own Bible. But when they allowed an English translation of that, even there the word Muhammad went away. Now you got, He is how wonderful. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was taken out of the Bible. Quran, no translation. So the Bible, when it speaks of the power of the devil, says music. Quran gave the real word that was told to the devil. Excite them, work on their emotions with your voice. And it's on this that we wanted to speak. That the voice is not only music. By Allah's fadl, today many people, even those who listen to music, they know it's haram. And they say, I feel so guilty. But it makes me feel so like relaxed. And they say, when I walk in the shop and that old tunes come up, then even if I'm a Moulana now, but then I just start moving a little because old days tunes, old days. Some of them say, Moulana, you know that one person who reads Nazms, I know he also used to listen to it because his Nazm resembles that one day also. And when he reads, I also move, and lot other of my friends are also moving. Old days. But at least they know music is haram. And look at the beauty of Quran. Where Quran or the Sunnah warned us about music. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it creates hypocrisy in the heart. Music. Like how when water comes and the plant grows, it creates hypocrisy. Many today understood music is haram. Watch out for music. But look at the verse of Quran. When Allah told the devil, He never said music. He said, use your voice to work on emotions. Where the music is one major tool of His. But there was a reason for Allah not to use the word ghina in Quran. It was to say to a great group of Muslims who don't listen to music, that understand the voice of the devil is not restricted to music only. He got another power, which is called the power of the international news. News is also his voice. Television is his voice. Radios is his voice. Hollywood is his voice. Bollywood is his voice. And what we call CNN, BBC, Fox. If you ever went into the research of where this entire group of news comes out, one person made a very nice research. You will see on the dollar bill, you will see a pyramid. I don't know if you ever saw it on the $1 bill. A pyramid. That pyramid was made for some reason. And on top of the pyramid there's an eye. And there's a message there in their language, most likely Latin, whatever it is, which means, may the Lord be happy, or may the blessings of the Lord fall on our work. Meaning we're going to put up a pyramid. But Allah's shan, even on the dollar, the pyramid that they put up is not complete. You will see an incomplete pyramid. When I mentioned this, what came to my mind, I said, whether they understood it or not, perhaps the devil himself was trying to say to his own followers that we will not manage to reach where we want to get. Our pyramid will never be completed. At the ending, there will be one Jamaat that will oppose it. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, till the end of time, there will be one group that will remain on the truth. Whoever tries to harm them will not manage to break them. Whoever pulls away from the aid for them will not cause them harm. They will remain on the seer until the decision of Allah comes. The pyramid will never end, meaning never be completed. When you look at the system of the news, you will see one pyramid is formed. At the bottom of the pyramid is all our news that we know about. South African news, whatever you want to call it. The Star, he might be there also at the bottom. And one Zulu newspaper and one Afrikaans newspaper. So they are all the baby guys. And then you'll get on top of them, they are looked after by another governing body. They themselves know the body. That we are responsible to this group. And this group will edit what you can write, what you can't write. If you put something, that paper when they write, when the writer writes, ask the one writing for newspapers. That if he just pushes little bit at the end of the year, we will say terminating your services. You have to write in a certain structure, but who's checking up? That level on top of you. That level is then governed by another level. They are bigger bosses than this one, and they the bosses over the other. And when someone made a research of who's the boss of the boss of the boss, he said how amazing the news system of the world, it looks like a pyramid. That it gets stronger, stronger and smaller, smaller, smaller as it goes to the top. And when you come to the top, you find one body. They are the boss of the entire news of the world. Use your voice to play with emotions. This verse is to give a message to the Muslim world that when the news will say something to you, Hollywood and Bollywood, although me and you know it's a lie, but ask the one who saw television. He will himself tell you, I was watching that movie. Me and my wife, two mature adults. And in that movie, one person ran away with the other one's girlfriend maybe. Or one person got shot dead. Or maybe it was a cartoon. And one lion died. Or one mouse died. And he'll say, me and my wife both started crying also. And at night, my wife told me how he could do that, how he could do it. We know it's a lie, but I just don't like that guy. He's that rubbish. The thing he made to act bad, I just don't like him. Knowing it's a lie, it had such an effect on the mind that the whole week this person is playing in his mind, I hope this one kills that one. Someone tells you want to see the end, just press forward, go see the last series. Then you know, okay, he survived, that one died. But still the person will follow each one, like something's happening. He knows it's a lie. And still his emotion is played. But the worst of the worst is where he doesn't know it's a lie. That is called the news. So again, music, he knows it's haram. But still he feels his emotions, he feels bad. Then he comes to television, he knows it's a lie. But still, even if it's a cartoon and the character cartoon died, he'll cry. But he knows it's a lie. Worst of the worst is when he thinks that this one is not a lie. You say, if BBC and CNN and Fox all said the same thing, there must be some truth in it. وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ. You will use your voice to play on the emotions of the people. But مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ, who you have your power on, use it. At the end of the verse, إِنَّ عِبَادِي لَيْسَ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانٌ. With your armies, with your wealth, with the children of the world in your systems, and with this terrible voice of yours, music, and your entertainment, Hollywood and Bollywood, and what is called the international news. North, east, west, south. Your voice will spread in the whole world. Everyone will be listening to how you say it. And when you listen and you listen and you listen, and you don't ever think it's the voice of the devil, then a time comes where we are the children of Adam alayhi salam. And when the devil continued persisting, you must eat from here, you must eat from here. Nabi Adam alayhi salam said, it's impossible he could be lying. I must have misunderstood. La yaftinannakum ash-shaytan. Let the devil not trap you like how Adam alayhi salam was pulled out of paradise. Adam alayhi salam, may Allah reward him, his mistake was a lesson for humanity at large. No matter how sincere the devil might make it look, he's a liar. No matter how sincere he might make it look, it's a liar. And on that I can just leave the bayan and leave you to think about, but we will add a few sentences. But if I just stop there, it would be my plea that as we go towards the end, if we continue trusting the international media like how we trust them today, even in the era when the Mahdi will stand, the news will be able to paint such a picture of the Mahdi that some Muslims in the world will say this Mahdi character is evil. Someone who we waited for years and years and years. But when the news comes into play, they can wipe away education in a second. And the child who says, my whole life I was taught the Mahdi is great. Only now I realize he's not great. That is what the news can do. For which reason it was called worse than armies. Because when the armies came in the Muslim houses and they killed people, when you kill someone, instead of making his son yours, you make his son a bigger enemy. Killing him made him dig his tunnel to go underground to go learn his deen. An army cannot break religion. An army sometimes does the opposite, they make religion. But voice is the opposite. Voice can create such a terrible result that very Muslim whose son built the tunnel to go underground, with voice, that Muslim can be made so evil that he will go and spy his own son out. He will go and close it down. He will be the one who says this is not allowed. He will be the one who says from tomorrow no one read Quran. Army cannot send anyone to Jahannam. An army can kill Muslims. They can torture Muslims. They can rape Muslims. Allah save all. But whatever they do, they only creating more shuhada. Believer into a kafir. Voice can create a believer into a kafir. Voice can create someone who you thought is yours, he becomes a bigger enemy than the devil himself. Everything to do with voice. Wastafziz, play on the emotions. The news can create such an effect that a day when the Mahdi will stand, there might be those Muslims looking at what's happening and say, because all we're looking at is one picture. And we think that picture is the entire world. I will give you a few examples. While we were having supper, I mentioned this. When I was in one country, at that time there was the xenophobia in South Africa. The people said, how can you go back to South Africa? So I mentioned they said normally in South Africa there's so much of crime that every day someone is dying. Every day. And now with xenophobia, everyone is dying. But we knew that in xenophobia also, everything was carrying on normal. But on the news, can you pick it up? On the news, do you see there's a Lady Smith Musalla? And in the Musalla, there are so many people here. On the news, you will look up, and as it's going through, you will just see dead bodies. You see, whole South Africa is dead. Whole South Africa. The news puts such a small picture in front of you, and when you look at it, you think you're looking at the world. You think you are in every house. You think you're in every shop. So then I said to that person, that by Allah's fadl, I'm living in South Africa where according to you, every day someone dies, but I'm still alive. I'm still alive. So we know there's crime. But how they look at crime, that no one lives. You say, come in the country. One place I went to, they asked how you survive. When you go out, don't you have a fear that a lion will jump on you? Because they thought we Africa jungle. So I said to them that the only fear we got is that other lions, they'll jump on us. The lions of the Kruger, but in their mind, because they only saw Kruger Park on that, so they think everywhere there's lions and baboons, everywhere. When me and you are shown the world, COVID is an example. We say learn from mistakes. COVID made the whole world make decisions because of what they put. We looked on a small screen. We did see death. We saw a lot of death. In lot of death, we saw a lot of life also. But in lot of death, we also saw a lot of life. The only thing is the screen never showed us who's living. They showed us who's dying. So when we saw that, we said, tomorrow there'll be no one alive. No one alive. But 1 year later, when we speak, we'll see more are alive than those who passed away. More are alive. And if the government makes a statement and they say the only reason we survived is because we were mature South Africans, then we will tell the government there's no one in South Africa mature. No one. They were not mature. You know it yourself. No taxi driver followed the laws, but all of them are still alive. Whoever entered that taxi came to work in our houses. The worker never followed the law. And we all know our houses never followed the law. We knew our wives, you tried so hard to tell her, make sure you put that mask on when your maid comes, when your worker comes. She just said, my kitchen, you keep your laws outside. There the man forgot all laws. No police was ready to come see auntie. No uncle was ready to say, make sure you social distance. At night when he needed to go to his wife, he forgot all social distancing. Every law was forgotten. Everyone knows no one was mature. But you see that picture. That one picture we saw made us make decisions which we would never have made before the news said do it. But that wasn't the issue. We say learn before we make a major mistake. Afghanistan, the issue of Afghanistan came in this last. For us it was like it suddenly happened. For those who are on the ground 20 years ago were waiting for it. I remember when we were in madrasa, one alim came. That is when America attacked Afghanistan, 9/11. So there was a jalsa, and in that jalsa, that alim, what word he said? He said that Russia also came to Afghanistan. And England also came to Afghanistan. England came in the 18th century. Russia came in the 19th century. Remember we mentioned 4 empires. From the 4, 3 of them landed in Afghanistan. England came in the 18th. And they took such a hiding that they never returned to Afghanistan. Russia came in the 19th. They took such a hiding that after that the word called the Russia-Soviet Empire or Soviet Union, the mighty, the word mighty came out of it. America entered into Afghanistan in the 20th century. Look at it, 3 centuries. 18, 19 and 20. I think that's why it goes, or 19, 20, 20, whatever it was, the 3 centuries. So at that time that scholar said, if it took Russia so many years, I think 10 years it took Russia. It took the Afghanistan's 10 years to get rid of Russia. So his sentence on that day was, then America is a superpower. So can we give them 20 years? And 20 years later, on the dot, the thing palaks. As though Allah inspired him that give them extra 10 years. They're super. On the ground, people were waiting for it for very long. Me and you never thought something is happening. But a lot was happening. A lot. But when it came to the fore, where we would have expected that the Muslims of the world would have rejoiced, would have become so happy that finally torture has come to an end. But because me and you never saw that torture, we never saw those dungeons, we never saw Americans just landing up in front of someone, one telling the other one, must I shoot him, the other one says, take him, shot, finished. No law. It was a game for them. They would arrest anyone, whoever they wanted. The person writes, he says, I had nothing to do with the Taliban. They came into one area, they found none of the Taliban, so they had to take some of us. They said they hit us so much over a period of 5 to 6 years that they created within me so much of hatred that even if I hated the Taliban before this, I would now join the Taliban. In those prisons, we never saw what was carrying on. When America attacked Iraq, forget the men who they tortured, what they did with the woman. Where one woman sent out a secret letter saying to her brother who was on the other side, I beg you somehow just bomb this place. because I am being raped so often. And Allah made it that they did bomb it. She passed away in that. They were unable to save her, but they managed to bomb that thing. The whole thing collapsed. We never saw what's happening. So when we saw we were supposed to have seen years of torture, years of rape, and not raping their own people, raping our people, torturing our people. And one is you become angry, how could you do that to my mother? How could you do that to my brother? We never saw what they did with the Quran. But ask those who are in the prison. It was called mental torture. Mental torture means we do something that makes you so irritated, but you can't do anything. They would take the Quran and they would urinate. And it would be just there in front, but this person can't get to it. And not they would just urinate. They would then leave that Quran there, so that you see it every day. When these people had a chance to talk, they said, forget what is being done to my body. At least do not allow that book of mine to be desecrated in the manner they're doing that. We never saw it, so we thought it's not happening. Just because it doesn't come on the news doesn't mean it's not happening. We never saw it. When that end of that era came, and when they had to run out of that country, it's supposed to be a rejoice for the entire world. But because they only showed us their picture, they only showed us whose reports they took. And wherever they took a report and the answer never come out what they were looking for. You must read those. Where they go to a house, and they're sitting with the person, and he says that, you know what, my mother, she wants to talk. So the mother, she's very old, about 80 years old, she comes with the full burqa, she sits down. She says, let me talk, why my son must talk? And then she says, how happy that true Islam has come again. Then she said, I'm not like those women on the streets. We love our modesty. Now suddenly they're taking a report, and they have now other Muslims also sitting. So look at the reporter. The reporter has to now write this. Yesterday the reporter wrote the opposite story. How they're saying, we just don't like this group. Now when the old auntie says, how happy I am, so the reporter says that it was obvious she was going to speak like this, because she knew that with us are the Taliban soldiers. And if she has to say anything that makes them angry, tomorrow she won't be alive. And that's like, for the other side they couldn't say that. That's the truth, this is the lie. They couldn't understand what that old auntie had to force herself to come. She was in a bedroom. No soldier pulled her out, say, auntie, come and talk. But look what the lie. If you want to see the truth of any matter, you have to go into the matter. When you will go into any country, you will look around and you'll say, you sure this is Afghanistan? But you'll see everything peaceful. Everyone moving life normal. Everyone sitting and joking, young children running, schools carrying on, madrasas carrying on. And then you'll say, but what was I watching? You'll say, you are watching Hollywood. You are watching Hollywood. When the Gulf War took place, Gulf War, many of you might have been too young, or those who were old. None of us ever had the time to research, and when the truth comes out after 10 years, we say, yeah, but it's gone already. When the Gulf War took place, Saudi Arabia was calling America to make sure Iraq after Kuwait doesn't come into Saudi. According to Saddam Hussein, America told him to go into Kuwait. So he got a shock that the next day America is telling Saudi, I will save you from Iraq. He said, but they told me to go in. Then it came on international TV. The Kuwaiti, whatever you call him, ambassador or whatever, his daughter comes onto television and she's crying. And she's saying, I beg you, O people of the world, come and save the babies of Kuwait. And then they had a picture of a hospital and the incubators empty. And she says, Iraqi soldiers entered the hospitals and pulled the child out of the incubators. And everyone started crying. Whole world. And they said, America, immediately go and save the babies of Kuwait. Babies of Kuwait. Years later it will come out that girl never ever saw Kuwait. She was living in America all along. It was called Hollywood. One Hollywood girl could say something and the whole world cried for babies who were never born. And then America entered. You will not remember what was the Gulf War. But there's one place which is called the Bridge of Death. Those soldiers were told that turn back and come to Iraq. We have made already a deal that we're pulling out. They turned on the Bridge of Death. When you see soldiers going back home, you're not supposed to shoot. They brought them to that bridge and there they dropped everything. It was called the Bridge of Death because the most amount of soldiers that ever died in one area. Bridge of Death. That they never showed. They showed the babies of Kuwait who were never born. Babies of Kuwait who were never born. When I was in madrasa, I read a waqia, an incident. We'll end on this incident. So he writes that one person is writing, he wrote it at the time when America made the decision to invade Iraq. And if you want to see the results, go and see Iraq till today, where children are still being born with those deformities because of the amount of poison they put in the land. So at that time he wrote this article. He said Tom and Bob. Bob and Tom, something like that. So what happened in the backyard of an American house? Father and the son and Bob. Bob was the dog most likely. They were playing cricket. So then the boy hit the ball and that Bob was running for the ball, bringing the ball back. Father was taking and bowling. And something happened and Bob went wild. So when he got the ball, he never brought it back. So the young child now went up to Bob and says, give me the ball. And Bob, dog he was, he lost it. You get animals, they lose it. He jumped onto the small Tom, this boy. So Bob and Tom it was called. Biting on this boy's neck, the father now came running, trying to pull the dog out. But he can't get the dog out, so he took that cricket bat or a baseball bat, whatever it is, and he started hitting the dog. Poor Bob. The neighbor, he heard something, so he looked from on top and he saw evil father hitting poor Bob. So he phoned immediately the police. It's called animal rights. So the police came in. Tom, he was taken to hospital. But poor Bob was taken to the hospital, the vet hospital. And he writes that, I don't know if it really happened or is this his story, he writes that it kept in the media for a good 2 months. What has happened to Bob? So he said, in the media, dogs have no rights in America. And he said, so many Americans never sleep at night. Will Bob get his right? Poor Tom, whether he died or not, no one has bothered. Finally, he says, the result in the court was that the father was taken for observation and they realized on that day he was not in his mind. Because of it, he was given so much months in a mad hospital. So he says that country that cries for the rights of dogs, I write this on the eve of America's attack on the land of Iraq, that it is a match between Tom and Bob. When Bob took out his paw and he smiled, he said, do dogs have no right in this country? And the whole country cried. And the poor child said, do insan have no rights? He said, you shut your mouth. Man has no rights in their world because the news focused on poor Bob. They never took the picture into the hospital. Had they gone in the hospital, they would have seen the bites on poor Tom. They would have seen him bitten from top to bottom. They would have said, shoot that dog, mad dog. But when the news came this side, they cried for Bob. Said, poor Bob, his shoulder is broken. I'll donate so much for him. A new kennel was bought. He must get new owners. A new building was bought. What a world. They can make you fall in love with Bob. Make you fall in love with Bob. Wastafziz, the power of voice. Let me and you learn our lesson. In Afghanistan, there were many people who said certain things when they were looking at the news. We don't have to give answers. Because they are also feeling shy today. Maybe we said the wrong things. Or we'll tell you, why don't you just take a trip? And I am saying this. In the next year, when this Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan starts allowing visitors, then how me and you would die to make a trip for Hajj and Umrah. It was to see a shi'ar of Islam. Just for this to see, how did a simple nation manage to take down the superpower of the world? And you can tell your son, my son, this is called the miracle of Islam. So simple. You'll still see them with their champals. And on that side you'll say, you know Rambo. Which boy doesn't know Rambo? Say, you know Rambo. Million Rambos landed here. All ran. All ran. Rambo. He said, these simple people, that Rambo couldn't pick up that machine gun. 2 Rambos had to pick it up to start shooting. This man picked up 2. He picked up 2 like normal. Rambo needed so much of covering on his clothing. This man had no covering. End off with one more example for you. When I was in England one time, there was a certain, like a castle, my friend took me to go see the castles of England. So in the castle, they introduced us to the knights of the past. That was the first time I understood what a knight is. I read about it, the Crusades. The Crusades came into the Muslim lands of Sham. We call 8 Crusades took place. 8. Only the first one, they were successful for 100 years, 90 years, or 70 years. Remaining 7, they got a hiding after hiding after hiding after hiding. 8 Crusades. Who went in those Crusades? A knight. Many knights. Like what today they call their commandos. The man said, what is a knight? To become a knight, it starts at the age of 3. They come to your house and they say, do you want your son to be a warrior? The father will immediately say, please. Because either you are a warrior and when you take over land, you become a lord. Or you work for the church. You work for the church, you can't even get married. So he says, please take my child at the age of 3. To become a warrior, you can't live with your parents. Because your parents are too soft. At the age of 3 or 4, you are put by a very cruel man. That man, from a young age, he's going to make you carry. You're going to be carrying water. You're going to be milking the cows. You're going to be cleaning the horses. Everything you do is going to be creating natural muscle. Then you become a squire. Squire, your job is to carry the weight, the armor of the boss. Then the man said, you want to see the armor? Then he called us. He said, lift. He called it that suit. Chains of armor. Just that chain itself, I went to carry, it's about 80 kilos. That's the vest. 80 kilos is the vest. Where can we even move that thing? I could not lift it from the ground. That man wears it. To put it on, but you squire, that young boy, he'll help the boss to dress. That's the knight. He needs a squire. Then he'll pull up his trousers. His trousers is metal. He needs the squire to pull it up. Then the squire will help to push him on the horse because he's already so many kilos. And then the knight will take that lance. That lance is long. Everything is weight. Meaning he's carrying like... So then there goes perhaps. And then you're fighting like normal. So then that man, it was all non-Muslims, there were a group of us Muslims, he said, can you ever imagine such a group being defeated? And everyone was like, wow. No one had the courage to say, but someone did defeat them. 8 crusades like this went into the lands of Sham. 8 crusades over a period of 200 years. And they were all wrapped up. All wrapped up. When you ask who defeated them, you will find one normal Muslim who was reading Allahu Akbar in the masjid. But his muscle was something else. And his heart was something else. When you ask who defeated that commandos who started training in the best military schools of America, they learned how to jump from aeroplanes. They had the dogs, they had the weapons, they had those goggles, they had those bombs, they had everything. And then you had another person who lived in a hut. He, whatever gun he found, he said, I wonder how this works. He shot it in the air a couple of times and said, I think I know how to use it. He had no military training. And some of them up till now, when they got shoes, they looked at shoes and they were thinking, how does this go onto the leg? In the ice, they wore champals. In the ice of Afghanistan, they had their champals. Some of them fought battle after battle with champals. Me and you, we go for sports. If our shoe is not right, they say, I'll break my ankle. They fought battles with champals. Battles. You wonder what was that? It is called when the flame of Islam was told we will carry on burning. And let the armies of the world blow and the flame will just move. Take a trip to Afghanistan one day with your child to say, this is the miracle of Islam. This is the miracle. 3 empires of the world landed up in it, and it became a graveyard for all of them. You had Pakistan, you had Afghanistan. One person on a map, he drew it so nicely, Pakistan. Then he wrote Afghanistan, then he wrote Qabristan. 3 empires of the world came and died in it. But the news is the voice of the devil. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala bless us. We learn from mistakes. Give us such an ability we are able to see through the news. We are able to see lies and explain the lies to others. And when the time comes where we have to make a decision for our iman, then may Allah make it that the news is not the basis on what we make our decisions on. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.